Hello everyone, welcome back. It is project time. So now we're going to go ahead and take all the skills that we've learned and we're going to put them into use. So we've been talking a lot about value, right? The dark or light qualities of a color, kind of breaking them down and understanding that, your lightest value of white is essentially 0 and your darkest value of black or your darkest color is going to be 100. We went ahead and we practiced those skills drawing spheres, kind of placing the colors in very specific areas to replicate something that looks as if it's three-dimensional. We practice our gradients, we practice mixing the colors, we practice different pressures, pressing harder, pressing lighter, and again we were able to achieve something again that looks three-dimensional. So our project is going to be kind of like an optical illusion drawing. So as you can imagine, optical illusions in art have been around for quite some time, and again, when we use a variety of colors, when we use a variety of pressures, and if we mix certain colors together, we are able to achieve something that looks as if it's three-dimensional. So here, when we look at values, we are identifying or using the values in the outer areas, making them darker, and then we're using the lighter values on the inner areas to make them lighter, of course. And with this combination of values being light and dark in the specific areas, it creates the illusion as if the shapes and objects are protruding out of the page and kind of curling in on itself. So here, as you can imagine, we are creating on a two-dimensional surface, but as you see in these images, they look as if they are three-dimensional. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, so for our project we're going to need our color pencils, we're going to need our pencil sharpener, our thin liner marker, like the super thin one, and then we're going to need a good old pencil. Okay. We also are going to need our project paper. Everybody should have a few sheets of project paper. It's approximately 9 by 12. If you do not have the project paper, please come see me. I have an abundance. I will be more than happy to give you more. If the project paper that you have is all bent and kind of not looking good, again, don't be afraid to come ask for some more. I got you. Okay? So for our project, the first thing that we're going to do, you can already see the lines that I have here, but you're going to start from the top and you're going to go ahead and make a mark. Now that mark needs to span from the top to the bottom, and you're going to want to include some curvature with your lines. Now with these lines being curvy, it's kind of up to you on how curvy they are. Now to think about it, the curvier the better. When we looked at those examples, the ones that looked super interesting were the ones that had really dramatic curves and lines that kind of went everywhere. Once you start with your lines, I want you to have a minimum of 6 different lines going from the top to the bottom. Now again, you can have more than 6, but I want you to have at least a minimum of 6. Once you get your lines down, again you should have 6 lines, you're going to go ahead and take your pencil, and then from the one end to the other, probably about midway through, you're going to go ahead and draw a nice light line. Now with this line, you're going to want to kind of give it some flow, give it some direction. It can be kind of curvy and wavy if you want it to. It can kind of go up and down, up and down. It's really up to you. Again, remember, at this point, you are the artist. You're the one making the decisions. The more different, the better, so you can stand out from the rest of your classmates. Once your line is made, you're going to start drawing in each of these sections curved lines, right? Giving the illusion as if they're kind of popping out from the page. So all the lines that go above are going to be kind of arced upwards, and all the lines that are below are going to be arced downwards. Again, the ones above are arced up, and the ones below are arced down. Now, when you're drawing these lines, you can draw as many as you would like for the top and the bottom. They can be spaced as close or as far away as you'd like. A little pro tip, the bigger that they are, the harder they are to color. So of course, I would give a variation of big and small to give your artwork some depth and some interest. And then when you're drawing the lines in the section next to it, they don't necessarily need to line up perfectly. Okay, so as you're drawing these, I would say the more imperfect, the better. And it's kind of up to you on where you draw these lines. Again, like I said, the more the better. The spaced out and closer together, giving a variation is going to give you the best result. So once you're done with that, of course you're going to get a result that looks something like this. Now, that line that I had here, what you're going to want to do after you get all of your lines all drawn, you're going to want to erase this light line. Now, I want you guys to erase it kind of like immediately so that you don't get confused with this line. This line, again, was just for reference to kind of give us that base on which areas are going up, which areas are going down, and giving us that flow to give us that kind of weird optical illusion, if you will. But again, you want to erase this light line so that you do not get confused, and again, it was only there for a reference in the moment. So once the line is erased, what you're going to do is you're going to take your thin liner marker and you're going to go over all of these lines with this thin liner marker. This is going to assure that we have a nice, distinct, crisp line, and then it's also going to help us not have to worry about the graphite, the gray graphite, mixing in with our color pencils. So once you've gone through with your marker, as you can imagine, you're going to have nice dark lines. And before we get started coloring, I want you guys to go back over the lines and just erase the pencil that was once there. Again, we need to get rid of that graphite so that we don't have any issues with it blending in with our work. And so when you're done here, we'll go ahead and start picking out colors. Now, when we looked at the examples showed all of them had many, many different colors, right? So this is your opportunity to kind of pick and choose what you want yours to look like. You can go every other one's a different color. You can choose all of them to have the same color. You can do a color scheme, right? You can use monochromatic colors. You can use analogous colors. You can use kind of warm, cool, warm, cool, warm, cool. There was a really cool example where it was like color, then black and white, color, then black and white. Again, this is going to be strictly up to you. Now, I've already started my project, right? I chose red and blue. And when we're coloring this project, the first thing that you want to consider is coloring each section one at a time. Okay, a lot of you are probably going to want to jump ahead and just kind of color everything all at once, but if you do that, you're going to lose the effect of this three-dimensional kind of shape that we got going on, and it's going to look all very forced and very kind of unnatural. Okay, so again, when you're coloring, you're going to want to start with each section one at a time. So I'm going to color this section, and I'm going to add it to kind of the form that I got going on here. And when I'm coloring, since I did pick red, remember with the skills that you've learned thus far, you can use multiple colors, you can use multiple shades of red, you can use kind of like just the pressures. Again, it's going to be up to you. Right now, you are the artist. So for me, I decided just to use 2 shades of red, one darker and one lighter. And this again is going to allow me to achieve that value and give me that three-dimensional feel. Remember here, in order to achieve that three-dimensional feel, I need to have the lighter values in the center and the darker values on the outer areas to create that three-dimensional feel. And so what I did for mine is I went ahead and then I colored and I created that gradient effect, kind of controlling where I put the colors, blending it from dark to light. And I started with just this color pencil. So here, again, I went ahead and I started in the corners. And I kind of worked my way over. Now, what I suggest is to start as light as you possibly can and then gradually build up your values. Remember, with the color pencil techniques that we've learned, you can use kind of the linear up and down motion, but when you're creating these nice light gradients, it's highly recommended that you use the circular motion and kind of just start off light, just brushing the color up on the page, kind of controlling where the color is going. So as I approach from the outer to the inner, remember that I have to go from dark to light, and the goal in the center is to leave that essentially almost completely white. Again, we are trying to create that effect as if this is, the center is kind of protruding out and then the sides are kind of curling in on themselves. And so, once I've started and kind of got a nice light gradient going from this darker area to this lighter area, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to start adding more value to the edges just to kind of make it darker. Right, and again, create that nice gradient going from dark to light. Now here, again, when you start getting these harder lines, you got to start using your pencil and kind of changing up that pressure so you can kind of blend those in to make it seem as if it's very seamless. So now that I got this gradient down, I'm going to go back into the corners and I'm going to kind of apply a little bit more pressure to kind of make sure that these values are as dark as they possibly can be with this color pencil. Remember that you can go back in with your color pencils and kind of add a darker color. You could also take it and go in with the complements, is how I achieve this here, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But again, you got to play with the combination of the literal color and the pressures that you're using to achieve these values. So once I get, again, the gradient nice and blended from dark to light, and again the center being basically white, I like to go ahead and take the lighter red, and I like to just go back in and kind of just add it to the colors that I already have. Now for you, again, remember, you're the artist, so you get to choose if you do this step with multiple colors or if you're just going to use one pencil. Again, whatever you choose to do is up to you. I personally, this was really dark, and I like this one because it kind of gives that more reddish tone. So I like to mix them together. As you can imagine, when you're creating art, one, it takes forever, right? And two, the more intent that you have around it and the more details that you give, the higher quality product that you're going to have at the end, right? It's very clear and very obvious when someone rushes, and it's also very clear and very obvious when someone takes their time. So once I've added in that red and made it look all nice to my liking, the last thing that I need to do is I need to kind of push these values even darker, because again, remember that in order to achieve this optical illusion, the outers need to be as dark as they possibly can and the inner needs to be as light as it possibly can. Your goal again is to kind of blend and get that gradient as perfect as possible. And so some people would end here, but the more detail the better. And so for me, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the complement. So remember when we were shading spheres and we practiced using the complements to create this shadow, I'm going to take, again, this is a darker green, and this is the complement to red. And remember, when we take the complements, they kind of mix together and make this more muddier color. And the reason why I prefer using complements over the color black is because this gives it a more natural, realistic feel, opposed to using just straight up black is going to make it feel kind of forced and kind of obvious. So, but if you choose to use black, that's really up to you. I like both effects. However, again, I'm just using the complements so I can kind of continue to create this nice effect. So remember, when you're using the complements, if there are areas that are too green, do not be afraid to go back over that green with the red. Remember that you do need equal parts of the complement and the color in order to create this effect. So sometimes the color or the complement may stand out too much, and again, you want to go back over it just to make sure that it's nice and blended. So, with that said, I've created one side. Obviously, you're just going to repeat it on the other side to create this, again, three-dimensional feel. Okay? So, when you get to a point, sometimes you might have to bring this darker shade kind of in a little bit further to continue on this effect that you got going on. So at the top, I went ahead and I showed you guys what it looks like when you use all the two shades of red and the complement. This one here is just the two shades of red right over here, and then this last one is just the darker shade of red. So with that said, as you can imagine, this is going to take some time, so it's very important that you focus and give your all during our class period to make sure that we are on track in finishing. Again, the more that you let it kind of pass you by, the longer things are going to take, and then it's going to be impossible to finish. So stay on track, make sure that you capitalize on all the time that you have. I, of course, will always make sure that you have enough time to finish this project with 100% class time. And so if there's not enough time, or if you get stuck or whatever it might be, just let me know, and of course we will kind of work it out. This project is going to take us a good at least a week, if not two, and so again, our final product will be well worth it. So if you have any questions, of course, as you know, hit me up through our personal channel. Go ahead and ask as many questions as you can in class. Hopefully we're back in person. But again, that's it. Have a good day. But really though, ask questions. Ask questions. These skills that you're learning are extremely important when it comes to art, and these concepts apply to literally everything. So when you're able to establish and master this type of skill, it is applied to literally everything that you are going to be doing or encountering in art from now until the literal forever. Okay? Think of it as like the equivalent to being able to drive, right? Most of you do not know how to drive and or do not have your license to drive, but the moment that you're able to drive and unlock that skill, the possibility becomes literally endless. So, same thing, once you're able to learn how to shade and blend colors and mix them together and understand that concept, your creation of art increases exponentially. So please, ask questions.